Mr. Walton, did you make contact with aliens? Will you take him to another planet, to a mothership? How they communicate with... Can you tell me what they look like? Can you tell me how many of them there were? Were you given food?
But the teachers are alive. They're not books. They are the very living essences of nature itself.
What a strange person.
Unbelievably powerful supercomputer that's running our reality, and we don't have a clue as to how to operate it.
So when maybe you or somebody else creates an AGI system and you get to ask her one question, what would that question be?
What's outside the simulation?
Say in your mind, say to yourself, I am more than my physical body, because I am more than physical matter. I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Welcome to Lighting the Void.
Broadcasting from a shack on a hill in the Mossy Creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. It's Monday. We're back, and this is Lighting the Void. Hope you had a great weekend. We're broadcasting live on the Fringe FM, KTLK Digital Broadcasting, and everything's a chaos around here. Even in my home state of Arkansas, people are rioting because they're upset, pissed off. And I'm not even going to try to justify anything that anybody's doing whatsoever. I'm not going to do it. Like, I'm not going to get into the political stuff. We ain't going to talk about that tonight. But I will say that we're very aware of it. I just want everybody to be safe. Try to act like an adult if you can. And if you feel like rioting, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm not going to be here to stop you. I'm not here to judge anybody. I understand the state of everything. But it's pretty freaking crazy. Like, there's riots all over the place, man. And then when it starts, they're even rioting in Bentonville, which, by the way, is the birth of the Walmart. If you guys really want to know where Walmart came from, I mean, people are just sick and tired of stuff. And I'm not justifying it by any means or justifying the behavior. But I'm hoping this will come to an end sooner or later. And these people will get the point that you can't just go around murdering people just because you wear a badge. It don't work that way. And, yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. So, but we're going to stay on the exploration of consciousness tonight, because this is where we're empowering ourselves. And this is where we need to take a deeper look. And tonight, our guest is Sara Janes, and she's a writer living in England. And, she's up early. She's here with us. So that's coming up here in just a moment. I want to thank all of our sponsors real quick. At GetTheTea.com, AncientLifeOil.com, and Metaphorical Archaeology. Right now, if you've got some emotional stuff that you need to deal with, I promise you, I'm giving you my word that this stuff works. Metaphorical Archaeology, 214-995-3754. It's been proven to work on vets, too. 70% success rate. So if you give Barbara a call, and if you've had a paranormal experience that's caused you trauma or post-traumatic stress, you can get that session in pro bono at Metaphorical Archaeology. Also head over to UFOseekers.com, which is backed and supported by the Fringe FM and Lighting the Void. You'll notice that their YouTube video's down, so something is up, right? Their YouTube channel's down, but we still support UFO seekers, always will. I got a chance to talk to Tim over the weekend. He's doing good, and he's staying busy. So a big shout out to them too. Also the patrons of the show, big shout out to you guys. I didn't get everything quite loaded like I wanted to over the weekend. I'm always running behind. You guys know that, but it's coming. Don't worry. It's going to be a bunch of content all at once. But then I'm going to upload for there. All right. So let's bring on our guest. Sara Janes is here, and she's a writer living in England. She has been obsessed since childhood with dreaming, especially lucid dreams. And she's also a researcher and workshop facilitator on the subject of sleep, dream culture, and practice. And the website for reference is themysteries.org. Sara, thank you for waking up early and hanging out with us here in the late night. It's really cool to have you.
Good morning, Joe. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Last time I missed it because I was sleeping, but I went to bed super early and woke up with the dawn chorus, so it was lovely, actually.
Now, you didn't stay up late partying, did you? Is that what really happened?
No, I never stay up late partying.
Right. I hear you. It happens. I mean, I will tell you this, you're not the first guest that didn't wake up in England because we were doing a show over here at a certain time. It's awful early over there, so we really appreciate your time coming on the show. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Your whole work is about dreams, right? And I think we have a few guests that come on about dreams, but specifically, I would like to know what your views are on a lot of things. I kind of want to start with what you talk about with sleep hypnosis. I'm very interested in that. How did you get started in that?
Actually, by doing it for myself. It was something that just worked instantly for me. I got into meditation a few years back, but before that, I had a stressful period in my life. And actually, I've got a 12-year-old daughter now, and I've always had really amazing dreams. They're part of my life. I've really always absolutely loved dreaming. And then when I had my daughter, I obviously had that period of time where you get no sleep, and I didn't have good dreams, and I felt really different and miserable. And I started to do hypnosis or hypnotherapy from Spotify, actually.
Oh, okay.
And I kind of always thought that I would be the sort of person that wouldn't be able to be hypnotized, or that, I think too much, but it just worked so instantly on me. It really impressed me. So I started looking into that myself. And then actually it's a useful tool for getting people into the right mindset, the right kind of state as they drift off. And then the kind of reemergence of the interest is once I started researching ancient dream culture and ancient Greek sleep temples in particular. I looked into the fact that the attendants there were using hypnosis to get the participants into a hypnagogic state and to guide them through hypnagogia to get into the healing dream where they would have contact with the god Asclepius. So that kind of reignited my interest in the power of sleep hypnosis. So really what I would like to do in the future is establish new sleep temples, new dream temples based upon these kind of simple exercises that the Greeks used and probably cultures before.
Interesting. Okay. So you're the first person I've ever talked to that actually, I guess, involves ancient cultures like the Greek and the Egyptians. You mentioned a goddess earlier. That I've never heard of that. So is that something like, do you believe that this goddess is really here? Is it a construct, or is it kind of both, or what's going on there?
I think it's a thought manifestation, essentially. And I think that the ancients created these god thought forms and gave them shape and reality, and that this is useful because if you have a physical representation of a ephemeral thought or an idea, you can focus your attention on that thing. It's harder to focus your attention on something if it has no form, if it's formless and invisible. So by creating gods and giving them form and shape, you create something that you can focus your attention on. And also, if you give a god a form or anything a form, it creates almost like an avatar that can then populate your dreams. So it gives you something to think about. It gives you something to give life to. And ancient people did believe that statues had power. They had spirits. They were imbued with magical forces, and they could speak to people and supplicants in sleep temples as well.
All right. So I'm kind of with you on that, because a lot of the stuff that we've had happen in dreams, you know what? Let me ask you a question. When you run into people in dreams that you don't know who they are, but you see these people, man, like they're so familiar. They almost feel like you like you're in another reality, or that they're just characters. Because when you're in a dream, a lot of times, especially if you're not lucid, you just don't, you forget about this existence, right? And I have this happen a lot, where I keep running into people, and there's like 5 of them that I know, but I've never met them. I've met one of them actually, but never met any of the other ones.
Yeah, I think there's a different sort of memory that you engage with when you dream, actually, and I call it dream memory. So sometimes you get that sensation in a dream where you remember, you have like it's on the tip of my tongue kind of feeling, where you have a kind of deja vu experience of, I know I've been here before, and it's part of my dream reality and it's part of my dream history. But when you wake up, it starts to evaporate, which is why you need to write it down. So I think we're engaging with maybe more of a kind of primitive memory, or a more ancient memory system in the dream state than we do with waking consciousness.
Well, what are some of the things that you've discovered that's changed your paradigm, like really big things you discovered in dreams? A lot of people say that you can have precog dreams, or you can actually divine things through dreams. I mean, that goes all the way back to, the philosophical periods, like way back in early, Plato, even before then, these people were divining with dreams. But I would hope that we've discovered that there's something more to it than that. What are some of the biggest things that you think that dreams have power that help us in our life?
I think one of the aspects of my dream research that interests me the most is this idea that dreams can be used for spontaneous healing events, and that if you have a dream event that involves a sort of miraculous or magical healing, that your body responds as though that thing's really happening. And that the lucid state is particularly interesting in this respect, because I believe that your mind and body is most engaged in the lucid state, because you're kind of consciously aware, but you're also asleep and in this imaginary realm. And so your body responds, or your mind responds, as if these things are really happening. But obviously you're kind of safe because your body stopped from moving. But I think that potentially there's an access point there for your mind to control, or to at least influence your sort of homeostasis response. So it helps balance your body. So if you have, I had a dream once where I was healed by the god Ahura Mazda, and he infused my body with light. And these are the kind of experiences that you might have if you're on psychedelic drugs or in a dream, but not the kind of experiences that you would have, generally speaking, in normal waking consciousness. And one of the things about lucid dreaming that I love is you do get this bodily experience, or whatever it is, you get this experience of bliss and joy. And I believe that state in itself is very healing, and that with the right kind of application of thought and mind, you can use it to fix and balance out your body.
Wow. So have you had a lot of people attest to this method, that it really does heal them? It works?
This is what I'm working on at the moment. This is why I've started to pretty much use sleep hypnosis in all of my workshop sessions, because I think as well, a lot of people come along to my talks or workshops because they don't have very exciting dream lives.
Yeah.
So it's boring for them really to listen to people talking about what great dreams they have. I'd rather give them a first-hand experience of what it feels like to especially enter hypnagogia. And for a lot of people, they don't really they have no familiarity with that state often, because people get really tired, they just fall asleep. Often they'll have their phone in their bed and all sorts of extremely unhealthy practices for, that are guaranteed to ruin your sleep. They don't even realize they're doing it half the time. So what I do in my workshops is get people into that state where they start to drift off into sleep and get them to recognize. And my favorite way of going into lucid dreaming is through the hypnagogic state. So you kind of have what's called a wake induced lucid dream, where you kind of you kind of hold on to your thread of conscious awareness into the dream state, so that you see the dream forming in front of you and then you're inside it.
Yeah, so now I feel bad because I'm ruining people's sleep. You know how many people fall asleep listening to this show? Tons of people.
Well, I bet they have nice dreams about what's going on, though.
Yeah, some of them have, actually. But it's like people, I've done that too, listening to back when I used to listen to Art Bell. And I was trying these practices that was I read from a chaos magician who was, what he would do is he would hold like something in his hand, like a ball or something that he didn't want to drop, and would try to not, because when you fall asleep, your hand goes limp, right?
Yeah.
And so he was trying to hold himself in hypnagogia. And because
Edison used to do that as well.
Yeah. So that I tried that a few times, and it caused me to do that during a radio show once. And I was walking through the woods, and I remember the dream specifically. I was walking through the woods and I saw 3 beings, and one was gray, one was white, and one was black. I don't really know what they were, but I could hear the host. I could hear Art Bell still talking in the background while I'm going through the dream.
I think actually sound is a really strong influential factor in dreams, and all the kind of sounds of the environment that you sleep in often filter into your dream state, and so I think people aren't necessarily aware of the effect that their kind of bedroom environment has on their sleep state. Like, a lot of people fall asleep watching TV or a film, which is something I can never do. I could never been able to do that. I can't fall asleep on planes. I really have to be in my bed with a dark room in order to go to sleep. I
can't either. As soon as I start falling asleep on a plane, I'll jerk myself awake. I don't know why. So I'm reading like your blog on Medium, this is cool. There's a spot in there really got my attention that said, freedom is a primal desire. This is on Corona Dreams. So death is a primal fear, but primal desires and fears have the strongest influence on our dream content. I think that's absolutely true. If I think about my dream journal and all the stuff that I've dreamt about, those are the biggest influences, aren't they?
Yeah, I think I got contacted by a lot of people at the beginning of this lockdown period with, I'm having the weirdest dreams I've ever had in my life. And it was really interesting. And one of the things I noticed, and I noticed in myself as well, and I wonder if anyone else listening kind of had this experience, but, Tiger King was broadcast around the same time as the beginning of the lockdown.
Yeah.
And dreams have this ability to give form to invisible forces or invisible threats. And so Corona is obviously an invisible threat, but Tiger King being broadcast at the same time kind of turned the threat into a tiger-based threat. So a lot of people were having Corona dreams, but with tigers or various terrifying characters out of Tiger King.
That's a if anything represents the energy of what's going on now, it's got to be that show. All right. That's a crazy, insane type of show.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing because I actually dream a lot about big cats, and they're my lucid trigger often. And there was something about looking at those big cat faces that was very dreamlike for me. And a lot of my lucid dreams will begin in a situation where it's this like shoddy zoo. And so for me, watching Tiger King was like, whoa, this is really the same kind of feeling I get of this. Before I become lucid, this kind of barely contained wild energy, and you really get a sense of a barely contained wild energy or not contained wild energy from watching Tiger King. And sort of parallel with what's happening with coronavirus, it was really interesting how many people contacted me. And I think one of the most common dreams actually with coronavirus is the virus manifests as bugs and insects for people.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I've had crazy dreams here lately too, but all of my dreams are like people that I really care about just getting angry at me about really stupid things, you know? And when you wake up, I don't feel angry towards these people or anything, but I'm trying to ask myself, like, why am I having dreams about like everybody in my life getting mad at me about the dumbest things? What is that about? You know, so do a lot of people come to you and say, well, you interpret my dream for me? Like, that's not what you really do though, right?
No, not really. And I really think that the best person to interpret a dream is the dreamer in almost all instances. That they're, you know, I think this is why the ancients were so into dream interpretation or so into dreaming, is because they had such a strong mythological culture with so many strong archetypes. And, you know, it's very symbolic and mythological in Egypt and in Greece, so that the kind of language of their dreams is very easy to understand because they're these well-established stories. And I think we miss myth and we miss stories in our culture. I think that's why people go down conspiracy rabbit holes, because we want there to be stories and characters and archetypes and villains and goodies and gods and heroes. And conspiracies can often like fill in that void of these strong mythological narratives that we've always had throughout our history.
Now, can you stay pretty lucid yourself for the most part? Have you, or do you just kind of go with the flow now?
Yeah, it ebbs and flows. I'm not as obsessed with being lucid all the time as I used to be. I've gone through phases of having lucid dreams all the time, and there've been times where I think that's why meditation really helped me, because in some really intense periods of lucidity, I started to really feel like I was in the Matrix, and I would sometimes get a little bit scared that I was like losing my grip on reality. But having a child seemed to have a very grounding effect on that, and made me appreciate lucidity for the kind of creative dimensions of it. I realized that, you know, I feel creative and happy because I have dreams. Like they give me a lot of happiness, and they help me express my creativity. I always wanted to be a film director because I wanted people to watch the weird dreams that I had and stuff. There's not many film directors that are really good at weird dream film looks. I think Jodorowsky's the best.
You know what? The more I think about that, I think a good director would have to like throw that in there. Like Quentin Tarantino did this last movie. It was something about Into Hollywood or ever. And the movie's like just building up about two stories of Brad Pitt and, Leonardo DiCaprio. They're just actor and a stuntman. And, you know, you get involved with the characters, but there's nothing spectacular about the movie until the very end. And then in the end, the craziest, it's almost like you go into this other reality. Right. And I think some of these directors have actually picked up on that. They've picked up on, people really like the nostalgia of this crazy, unsensical thing that could happen. You know, I think that's what's going on there.
I think we've become a bit too kind of reality based. You know, our whole life is like this web that we send out of internet tendrils, and actually we need to learn to spend more time in the darkness to activate the imaginal realms, you know, the kind of looking into nothingness, the staring into an obsidian mirror, all these kind of activities. Like one of the exercises I get people to do in my workshop is just practice that inner gaze, that sort of soft gaze that you have when you start to conjure up imagery in your mind's eye. And when I was a kid, I used to do a thing where you put the palms of your hand, like push them into your eye sockets. And I used to see this tunnel of stars and go through this tunnel of stars. And just things like that, people often don't spend time doing because they don't get an opportunity to be bored or quiet or still or in darkness. So it's that kind of retraining. And then one thing I've come to see as well is that the way you see, the way you visualize content in the dream state is that kind of inner gaze, that soft gaze that you have, that actually we don't experience very often now, because, you know, some people say there's almost like a cult of that waking alert consciousness, that particular kind of brainwave pattern of being on the ball. And there's less emphasis on those imaginal states or those daydreamy type states that are really familiar to you as a child. So I get people into that situation. Like sometimes I explain it a bit like, do you remember third eye pictures in the 90s? And there's a certain way that you have to look at them in order to see the image. And that's sort of the way that you have to get into the habit of looking at stuff. You have to kind of see through the third eye almost, because, one of the most interesting things about dreams is the fact that you see such vivid, incredible visual content and you've got your eyes closed. So even that in itself is absolutely amazing to me.
Yeah, I remember those. Those things used to be everywhere. You don't see them anymore now, though.
No, there seems to be a little fad for them at the moment, actually, online, where you have to put your face really close to a computer screen.
Yeah, right. Well, I see those all the time too. What I want to do is, and what I've tried to do with the guests that have come on to talk about dreams, because I'm really into dreams and the out of body experience, and just conscious exploration as a whole. But I'm trying to figure out what types of things we can do with them. So far, I've gotten a list of, like you can tap into your past lives, you can tap into prophets and oracles. But what I think this is the first time where someone's actually mentioned on the show about healing yourself. And we're talking about physical healing, emotional healing. We're talking about the whole spectrum of healing here. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the dreams that really sticks out to me in terms of emotional healing, because you can have experiences where you could, if you've never had a chance to say goodbye to someone who's died that you've loved, you can have an experience where you meet them in the dream state and you get to say goodbye, and it can be like an enormous, fantastic, wonderful relief for you to have those experiences. Things that are physically impossible but that could be very healing for you can happen, and they can feel totally real. Like I had an experience with a friend who died, and I had contact with him in the dream, and it felt really incredibly wonderful. And just in one night, I woke up and I felt like I had this beautiful, meaningful experience with him. And I had another dream where I'd split up with a partner and I was really heartbroken. And when you get yourself into a sort of obsessive compulsive thinking, like a really sort of detrimental cycle of negative thought about something like that, and that happens to people a lot. And I had a dream where he had a new partner, and I had a dream where I met him on a boat, a big style, like Fitzcarraldo style boat going through the Amazon jungle, and I had to watch him in this dream having sex with his new girlfriend. And I was sitting in a tiny cupboard under the sink. But it was amazing because I wasn't engaged with my waking consciousness, jealousy feelings or any kind of it was just, I took it, and it actually felt amazing and liberating to experience it. It was like the worst thing I could possibly experience, but it was like this alchemical transformation of I'm not going to have this horrible feeling about that sort of thing anymore. And then after I'd watched them have sex, we walked out to the back of the boat, and a bittern flew out of the jungle and landed on the back of the boat, which is a rare swampland bird in England. And I said, "Look, James, it's a bittern. It's the rarest bird in Britain." And he was just not bothered. And at that moment, I was like, I see. I'm not bothered anymore.
Yeah,
I completely let go of it.
Yeah, we got to take a break here, but I see where you let go of the idea of the they're being totally intimate and physical with somebody else, and the idea that almost like this idea of your dream just realized that you're not very compatible, all in one sentence.
And it was a complete cognitive shift. Literally, click my fingers, all of those negative feelings were gone. Genuinely, because it had got to the very, very root of the issue and changed it all.
Wow, that's so interesting, fascinating stuff. We're with Sarah James. We got to take our first break. I'm Joe Roop. This is Lighting the Void live on the Fringe FM. If you're away from the riots and in the house listening on your mobile, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Charlton from Metaphorical Archaeology. If you've ever had a traumatic paranormal experience, the effects of it may stay with you for years. Who do you talk to? You can't go to conventional help. What we do is we use emotional freedom techniques or tapping to actually neutralize the effects of that event. Maybe when you tell the story now, your heart races and your palms get sweaty. You don't even want to think about it because you don't know how to neutralize that. That's what EFT tapping does. It neutralizes those emotions. The circuit that was recorded on is gone. The energy flows freely and you're free of it. And that's what emotional freedom is all about. We offer this as a pro bono service, but this is something that I offer because no one, it seems, is helping people with these experiences. If you'd like to reach me, it's really easy. My cell phone is 214-995-3754. Please leave a message. I will get back to you as quickly as possible. Or you can email me, barb.eft@gmail.com. And EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. Reach out to me. It's confidential. This works. You won't believe the results.
All right, man. This is Crow 777, and you are listening to The Fringe FM.
Right, me old Chinas. I know it's an ad break, but before you lot shoot off and make yourself a cup of Rosie Lee or whatever else it is you're going to sling down your Gregory Peck, you need to listen to me babble. If, like me, you found your way to Lighting the Void via a downloadable podcast, you might want to take a butcher's at the Fringe FM Wind and Kite. You won't Adam and Eve how many other shows there are or what they rabbit on about. Ancient history, conspiracy, the consciousness, the esoteric, the occult, metaphysics, parapolitical, ufology, technology and spirituality, to name but a few. They got featured hosts like Ryan Gable, Jeremy Scott, Alex Exum, Tim Doyle, Cortana and Gigi, Susanna Ross, the Reverend John Polk, Michael Deacon and J.D. Lewis. You might find yourself listening to the thoughts and theories of the author of The Fish you just finished reading. Or you could pick up the dog and bone, call in and tell everyone your own beliefs or experiences. So do me a favour, before you put on the Ansel or crack open a bottle of vino or roll a joint, go to the Fringe FM and see what you're missing.
This is Elle. I listen to Lighting the Void because it's interactive radio with good content, interesting guests, and a humble host, sharing his journey through the esoteric. Hey, Joe Roop. Thanks for having us along for the ride.
Thank you so much. What a delightful evening.
Well, I got a lot of ground to cover.
From a cave in the depths of your mind, it's Lighting the Void with Joe Roop.
Please listen. Now is not the time to fear. When your immune system is strong, shields up. You have very little worries. If your immune system is compromised, you're susceptible to all viruses. I say shields up and no fear. Try Heart Love from GetTheTea.com. Heart Love has a special ingredient called allicin. It comes from the healing part of the garlic plant. No garlic breath, no garlic leaking out your pores, just pure immune-building ingredients that gets your shields up. Heart Love is a unique blend of herbs that loves to build you up. Google garlic and know the benefits. One Heart Love pill is equal to 20 cloves of garlic. 20 cloves! Shields up. You've heard of our Life Change Cleansing Tea at GetTheTea.com. Now try Heart Love. And by the way, take your blood pressure and watch weekly what happens. So here's how to purchase. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com and build your shields. That's GetTheTea.com. Mention Ray in the coupon code and hit apply and receive free shipping.
Hey, I'm J.M. DeBoard, and when I want to talk about dreams, I look up my man Joe Roop and his show, Lighting the Void.
You're listening to Lighting the Void. The call-in number is 1-800-588-0335.
That's right. We'll open the phones up in the second hour. I want to talk a little bit more with our guest here before we start asking any questions with Sarah Jane. The website you can go to is themysteries.org for reference. And I wanted to mention too, that you've kind of moved your blog over to Medium. I think that's a good place to blog, actually. There's a lot of good writers there. So I gave you a
Medium
follow
also
there.
seems to get really good ratings in Google.
Yeah, really? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Sorry, I got this.
Yeah, you
music
always seem to
still
be
going.
on the top of the Google search list on Medium.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm gonna. I need to write some more articles on there too. Apparently, I've only wrote a couple, but yeah. So I am kind of, I don't know, really curious about how society influences our dreams. I don't like the idea or the fact, and maybe I just need to get over this, of everybody else's energy or influences involved with my dreams, because I feel like there's so much to work out there that if I'm allowing, I don't know, like the coronavirus or other things to get involved with my dream, then I'm not in very much control of what's going on. I feel like it's a place to do spiritual work. You know what I'm saying?
Me too. I think there's too much out there, and I think that you need to start thinking about what kind of media you take in and what kind of visual data, what sort of sound you listen to, everything. More like the way you think about eating healthy food. You know, I don't eat junk food. You wouldn't think that there were no consequences to eating a really unhealthy diet. And I think that there are also consequences to having a very unhealthy life with media.
Yeah, well, they're definitely, I can tell you firsthand that there's consequences with junk food, because I became a junk food addict for a little while sitting behind this microphone, and it definitely does affect you. But
yeah.
Have you ever like slipped into an out of body state doing this stuff though? Like where you actually saw yourself sleeping or had any experiences like that? Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, I did have an experience. I went on a Tinder date with a neuroscientist to the national park in Wales, the Brecon Beacons, and we were doing remote viewing experiments in this little shepherd's hut, and we went for a walk we tried to find this famous lake in the Brecon Beacons that is the kind of birthplace of this story of the Lady of the Lake.
Uh-huh.
And we started walking, and it was getting dark, and it started snowing, and I suddenly had this like panic that I was in the middle of nowhere with a stranger, and what a ridiculous thing to do. And I kind of like just blipped out of reality, like my linear kind of like thought processes, and landed on the floor. And I didn't collapse or anything, but I just kind of like, I think sometimes you have these experiences like near-death experiences or shocks that they must release some sort of chemical in your body that later on manifests as the ability to go out of body, or you know, whether it's DMT, whatever it is, it's like your body kind of floods with either sort of a hormone or something that basically primes you for these experiences later on. Because I've noticed this happen a few times. I've had like experiences where I've nearly died drowning or whatever, and then later on I have like amazing out of body experience or amazing lucid dream or something like that. And it feels like there's something that happens in those instances where you do seem to like pop out of what isn't linear, but what feels at least linear experience of reality. And later on it manifests in the dream state. So anyway, I fell onto the floor and kind of blipped out of reality for a second, and then realized I was also really dehydrated because we were walking for miles. And it was one of those walks that, you know, when like the goal of your walk seems like it's maybe 5 miles away, and then when you get past 5 miles, it seems like it's another 5 miles away, and it almost feels like a mirage. It was that kind of a walk. And
that's a pretty good Tinder date though.
Yeah, I was pretty good at doing Tinder dating. When I was doing it, I would make everyone go on quests, because I can't think of anything worse than like having to make small talk in a coffee shop somewhere.
I had the worst
I made sure I only
Tinder.
went on weird people.
I'm
really?
jealous.
Tinder's my favorite subject, other than dreams.
you're like, you actually, you know what? I don't like the fact that, I guess it's modernized, so we speed up the process now. So you're like, yes, no, yes. Oh, a match. Look at that, right? But I thought that was kind of cool. But then when I would get there, they're not even close to the picture, or there was like a lot of lies. There was a lot of manipulation.
Yeah.
I had to escape from a couple, actually. Really. So
I realized that it just doesn't work at all for me, because I'm not really that looks based. I tend to become romantic with people that I've become friends with.
Yeah.
So for me, it didn't work, but it did work in terms of hilarious, weird experiences.
Yeah.
I had some good adventures.
So you send it. So just, I know it's off topic here, but you send your dates on like walks or like mystery things or what?
Well, I only went on dates with people that were like weird or had some sort of weird interest that I shared. So at least we could have some sort of adventure. And so, yeah, I did that one. Then I met an archaeologist that I made drive me to a sleep temple in England, an old Roman sleep temple. We had to go on this big long road trip. So that was fun. But yeah, I also think it can be quite useful for work and career.
Yeah, because you're networking, right? You're meeting all these people.
Yeah, it's total networking, dating.
Well, I can tell you, it must be a bigger city thing or something, because I had the worst experience with it. But I always had the worst experience with stuff like that too. But here's what I want to talk about, and this kind of plays into that. Like, what am I telling myself right now? That I have the worst experience with things because of what? That's like a formula. Is that creating my reality kind of thing? And do my dreams? Yeah, so if you say that, did your dreams kind of correspond with that? Are you creating that, or what's your dream telling you? You see what I mean?
Yeah, I think I realized I didn't finish my little thing about the Brecon Beacons. So in terms of like these weird experiences that you have, these kind of like near-death experiences or like sudden terror or sudden fear, it gets me to thinking about the way the mysteries, the mystery initiation experiences worked in ancient cultures, is they would often employ like abject terror and fear in order to like elicit a kind of response from the subconscious mind of the participants. And I think that what probably happened in the mysteries was, after being subjected to all of these trials and these very sort of dramatic performances, that actually the real integration of the mystery experience would have happened in the dream state. And so what happened to me in the Brecon Beacons is, after I collapsed, I went back to the shepherd's hut. And when I went to sleep that night, I had an out-of-body experience, and I came out of my body. I could feel myself like floating above my body and just to the side. And I was really lucid as well. And I remember reading somewhere that you can make tiny micro movements of your fingertips in the dream state. Most of your body is sort of paralyzed when you're sleeping and dreaming, but you can move some little bits of your body. So I was making these tiny little micro movements with my fingertips to just exercise that ability. And as I was seeing these like fractal patterns emerge from the little tiny micro movements of my fingertips. Oh, and wow. Then I found myself in this like abyss area, like this kind of just nothingness. And I had read before about how there is this abyss state in I follow more of a Western tradition, but in Tibetan dream yoga, there's this abyss space that you can be in. And in that space, you're supposed to meditate. So I started to meditate in this space, and it was a really beautiful experience. And I never had that before. So yeah, I think that those two, you can use a hypnagogia and you can use the dream state to like hop off into the out of body experience potentially sometimes. It depends how you fall asleep, I think. I think you have a similar situation with sleep paralysis. But on the subject of manifesting your reality, I really think that's true. I think that I've noticed in my own dream life that if your dream avatar, if you like, if the dream representation of yourself is a lovely representation, is like a good optimistic representation, you feel happier. And you can start to create the person that you want to be in reality in the dream state, where it's much easier. And then it seems to create this like feedback system where the better you are in the dream state, the better you become in reality, because, your dreaming self is often very honest. So if you can be honest with yourself, you'll find that the dream avatar is that much better than it is if you're kind of like not being totally honest with yourself.
Wow. Okay. That's really cool. So here's the thing. How do I, so let me tell you what happens to me a lot, because, and maybe it's because I'm into the out of body experience so much, is that like I'll be dreaming and then I'll feel that out of body thing where I'm coming out of my body. Like I know what that feels like now because I've actually done it. And I find myself in the middle of a dream. All of a sudden I'm in the state where I feel like I'm floating up out of my body. And I'm like, well, I'm about to, so I kind of become like half lucid, but like, I'm coming out of my body. And then I wake up later and I'm like, was I really, or am I like dreaming that I'm coming out of my body? It gets really confusing after that.
Yeah, it can. I'm really into sleep hypnosis, and sometimes I'll do a sleep hypnosis session. And because I make my own sleep hypnosis tracks, it's quite funny because I find that because it's my voice, I go over much quicker because it's so much easier to be my inner voice because it actually is my voice. And sometimes I'll come round from those and I'll be like, where have I been? What have I done? Like, how long was I asleep for? And it can be quite amazing. But I think that the more kind of experiences like that you can hold the thread of your conscious awareness on, and especially with hypnagogia, that experience of drifting off to sleep, where sometimes you'll get even auditory hallucinations. You might hear a doorbell go or someone call your name. The more you can sit kind of comfortably in that and expand that experience, the more familiar you'll get. I explain it to some people like it's like Alice in Wonderland when she falls down the rabbit hole. She kind of holds on to the thread of her personality and her sense of self as she's falling into the dream properly. And that falling down the rabbit hole is the hypnagogic experience.
Yeah, that's a good term for it, actually. Falling down the rabbit hole. The how come we can't stay there long? How long can we actually stay there, you think? Before we wake up or slip?
I realized that that's kind of how I got into lucid dreaming as a kid, because I learned how to stretch that out because I loved it. I loved the experience. I had a cabin bed, and sometimes I wonder whether that wasn't the thing that started it, because the reason why I think I was becoming lucid was because I would need a wee in the middle of the night, and I didn't want to get out of my cabin bed because it seemed like too much of a pain in the ass. So right. I would in the dream become aware of the fact that I needed to go to the toilet and then just not. But it made me like conscious of the dream as it was occurring.
Yeah, you wonder. That's a funny thing too. You wonder how many people take a leak while they're in hypnagogia. I know a lot of people have done that because I've had roommates. Yeah, I have roommates get up in the middle of the night and I walk to the bathroom and be like, oh, damn it.
Yeah.
Because they're in the bathroom and they say the dumbest, craziest stuff. And you're like, what? And they're like, yep, there's something out there with a square and a pentacle. And I'm like, I don't know what you're saying, but I hope you hit the mark, So like
I think my dad used to do that when he was drunk. And I think he would often go into the walk-in cupboard and just wee in the walk-in cupboard next to their bed in the bedroom.
But I've done that too. It's amazing how you slip out of consciousness and can bring yourself back. Like, I had an experience fairly recently where I'm talking to somebody and then I fall asleep and then I start saying stuff that don't make sense at all. And I'm catching myself doing it. And I'm like, what am I slipping in? What am I saying? Or what do I think that they're saying? How is my brain like, I don't know why I get so obsessed with that. Like, how's my brain coming up with this? And then you'll hear them say like, what? You're not making sense. And then you'll wake up and you're like, okay, I was definitely slipping into a dream there, I guess. I don't know. I want to be more aware of it. I get too fascinated with it, I think.
I do think meditation can really help with that kind of self-awareness, that holding on to the thread of consciousness, because you become very aware of where your thoughts are leading you or where they're going. So that can be really useful for hypnagogia.
Now, the New Age movement quite a bit will tell us that we can experience our higher selves or receive messages from our higher selves in our dreams. But to be honest with you, I've yet to really do that. I haven't had I've had a prophetic dream experience for sure, but I haven't had like an entity or anything that I would consider my higher self or a larger version of myself talk to me. other than maybe in symbols or maybe the entire dream as a whole. So
Yeah.
I don't know where they get that from.
I think, they say dreams are quite culturally specific, and I think that is true. And I think whatever you focus your attention on generally expresses itself in your dream life. So one of the things that I've been really enjoying is I'm learning more about, I'm absolutely like fascinated with ancient Egyptian civilization and culture and their religion and spiritual concepts. And during lockdown, I've been teaching myself, I started just before lockdown actually, teaching myself hieroglyphs. And hieroglyphs are literally the most amazing dream symbols to work with ever. Like, it's a perfect language for working with dreams. And I think the evolution of language and the evolution of dream content are a kind of hand in hand expression of consciousness. And I was listening to a podcast recently with an expert on dream culture in ancient Egypt, and she was saying that dream interpretation kind of comes along a little bit later in the ancient Egyptian timeline, and it's almost like dreaming responds to developments in language and culture.
So when you were talking earlier about meeting a goddess, was that you just saying, well, when you get into a certain state, all of the messages are coming from this goddess, or did people actually see it?
Yeah, people would have actually seen the god and the goddess in their dreams. I think that the very earliest ideas about dream incubation, this idea of like dreaming for purpose with intent, seem to come from those cultures that created what we call the Venus figurines or goddess worship, or, seeing the earth as a mother goddess. And art and sculpture and these kind of human cultural dimensions influence the dream state. And once people had created a figurine, that figurine could then be given life in a dream state, and you could communicate with that entity.
Okay, that makes sense. It's kind of like you're controlling the video game, so to speak, and all its characters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I think that's pretty cool. I want to get involved with this. There's just so many dream experts, so many people that say their dream. Like, for instance, if someone went out and said, well, I'm going to buy this big book of dream symbolism. Now, there's a lot of people that believe totally in that, but the lines get skewed, don't they? I mean, from person to person, the lines get skewed. Like, if you see a pool of water in your dream, it could mean something totally different in mine. So how can anybody write a book about it?
Yeah, I do think that if all you ever read was that book, you probably would start expressing via that sort of dictionary of dream content, basically. But I think it's really useful to get into what you like. Like, I love Egyptian stuff. So I have loads of dreams about Egyptian things because I often will read stuff about hieroglyphs before I go to bed. I'll be writing them before I go to bed. And you just find that there's something about hieroglyphs because they're pictorial, and the Egyptians, their entire language is often kind of punning, and they use puns a lot, and puns are written about all the time in terms of dream interpretation when they started doing it later on. There's something about the way they work that just gets into your dreams. It's really amazing. So I
maybe
see them
it's
all
better
the time now.
To do that, to like program your dreams with something that you.
Yeah, I think think of it like that. Program yourself with what you want, and then those things will be, your unconscious mind will utilize those things to express whatever the issues are in your life. Like, dreams are culturally specific. So in ancient Egypt, they had similar kind of anxiety dreams to us. They'd have a teeth falling out dream was a common dream in ancient Egypt.
Yeah,
but also your face turning into a leopard was a thing in ancient Egypt. That was a very common dream. And culturally, you look at that and you look at what was happening in ancient Egypt and the kind of cultural dimensions of that potentially could be something like leopard skins were worn by the priestly classes. So the face turning into a leopard could be a sort of spiritual awakening dream potentially. So there's cultural dimensions to the things that we dream about. And I think if you if you really love a civilization or a system or a particular pantheon of gods, read about that before you go to bed, and your unconscious mind will use those forms to express your life and reality to you.
Yeah, that's cool. I think I'm going to start doing that. I like Egyptian stuff too, actually.
Yeah. I love, I've always loved like any art forms that are dreamlike. Like my favorite authors are people like J.G. Ballard. I like Vladimir Nabokov. I love like really beautiful, dreamy, magical realism novels. I like Zulfikar Ghost, and I've always loved dreamy type films. And I always did read a lot. And I do wonder whether, reading novels before you go to bed, that stuff comes up in your dreams a lot if you read a novel before you go to bed. That's one of my first recommendations for people. Novels are just amazing, especially if they're good. Don't read The Collector by John Fowles. That is a horrifying book to read before you go to bed.
Maybe read more of maybe start out with Tolkien if you've never read Tolkien or something. Maybe something like that.
Yeah, or Philip Pullman, or some sort of fantasy. Fantasy stuff's great because it really engages the imagination.
Fantastic. Well, we're at the top of the hour here. We'll start taking your questions here when we come back. We're going to talk a little bit more with our guest tonight, Sarah Jane. We're going to get into dream exploration. I want to talk to her about the nostalgia of dreams as well as emotions, the things like that we'd like to discuss on the show. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Alex Exum, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
Are you intrigued by paranormal talk radio? You'll love the new paranormal radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Hey, this is No Way Jose, a Northern California Piscean stuck in the Arizona desert. I'm a void walker, and I got the shoes to prove it. So what do I do when my soul yearns to delve deep into the realm of the unknown? I aim my satellite straight into the night sky and catch a smooth ride on the KTLK-DB radio waves. I tune into Lighting the Void with Joe Root on the Fringe FM.
Joe, Lighting the Void is the best show on the planet. This is Barney, your friend from Facebook. Thank you and all the crew for all you do. Namaste, my friend.
This is Macon from the foothills of North Carolina, and I am a void walker.
G'day, void walkers. This is Lily from down under Australia. The world may be small, the enigma is greater. So let your curiosity take you for a journey with Joe Root.
Hey, this is V, coming in from Central Maryland, and I am a void walker.
This is Kevin Doherty, a beginner void walker. I'm from Vancouver, BC. I know a little about a lot, and as Leonard Skinner said, I guess the rest. I learned a lot from Mr. Root in the show, and I heard it from the beginning. I knew right then he was going to be a new Art Bell. Thanks for all your shows, and keep it up.
Hey, this is Derek from Mass, a.k.a. the Night Stalker, and I'm a void walker.
This is Mark from Chicago, and I walk the void to ascertain what is consciousness.
My name is Jared Johnson, and I'm from Humboldt County, California. I do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. I do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family of explorers of consciousness. I'm a void walker. Thanks, Joe Root.
I'm Clyde Lewis. You are listening to The Fringe FM.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
Have you ever seen an ad or banner which brought you a feeling that someone is reading your mind or even listening to your conversations? Your online data is being used against you. Surfshark is a VPN service that makes online privacy protection easy and attainable. You can use it on as many devices as you'd like simultaneously. Surfshark encrypts all internet traffic sent to and from your devices and ensures that your IP address remains hidden. The VPN service that we use at UFO Seekers, plus 1 month free for $1.99 a month. Visit surfshark.deals/seekers.
We all have that story to tell in our lives. The winds were howling. The ground shook. You could hear rushing water. And then history repeats itself. When there's no power, refrigeration fails. Stores with their shelves strip bare. ATMs can't operate. Deliveries stop. Then what? These events can last days or weeks. You need a plan. In statements made during recent interviews, FEMA Administrator Brock Long has repeatedly urged all Americans to understand 3 truths. FEMA is broke. The system is broken. If this is the new normal, Americans can't rely on federal cavalry when disaster strikes. Don't get caught out in the elements empty-handed. Prepare with us by going to preparewiththefringe.com and get your 2-week food supply. 92 servings, 8 food varieties with 25-year shelf life. Normally $137, now only $75. Or get a month's supply, normally $247, now only $147, shipped in 1 business day. Just go to preparewiththefringe.com or call 888-440-7931. That's 888-440-7931. Get this great offer and be prepared while it lasts.
Hey, Fringe listeners, this is Dave Cruz, host of Beyond the Strange Radio, asking you to join us live Sunday evenings at 7 p.m. Pacific Time, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Fringe FM. Visit BeyondTheStrange.com for links to chat, social media, and schedules of the show. And remember, always stay strange. Hasta.
Somewhere between abnormal and paranormal, there's a show called Into the Paranormal. I'm Jeremy Scott. Hear me live Saturdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern on the Fringe FM.
Abnormal News, I'm Brad Bernards. CBS Los Angeles reports there's been an increase in the number of reports of possible hauntings at homes amid the pandemic lockdown. Believers say they have no way to keep themselves socially distanced from the spirit world and claim they've been subjected to an extra dose of paranormal activity during the coronavirus quarantine. The new normal is bringing out the paranormal, says John E.L. Tenney.
This quarantine has led people to really pay attention to their environment and their homes. I've seen an enormous spike in people who think that their house is haunted or that they're living with a ghost. From typical knocks and footsteps in the hallway to some very new, strange occurrences like people hearing whispered voices through their television sets.
That's courtesy of the CBC. Tenney, a paranormal researcher and former host of TV's Ghost Stalkers, says he gets 5 to 10 calls a week. Quarantine life in the time of COVID-19 pandemic is giving a variety of experiences to people, but for a 23-year-old girl living alone in a flat in Kandivali, Mumbai, the experience is quite haunting, according to reporting in the Hindustan Times. Locked down alone for more than a month, this college student claims to see ghosts often in her flat. Feared and annoyed, she chose to call upon India's first paranormal helpline number and shared her experience. The helpline number is brought up by Jay Alani, India's well-known paranormal investigator. When he investigated her case, he found that those binge-watching horror movies led her to create a fictional character in her mind. Connect with the news at parabnormalradio.com. I'm Brad Bernards, Parabnormal News.
Message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void. I am your host, Joe Roop. We're at the top of the second hour here with our guest tonight, Sara Jane from the mysteries.org website. And Sara is doing a lot of work with the dreams, sleep hypnosis. She also has a dream magic shop and the Explorers Club. If you go to the website, you can check that out. And before the break, we were talking about some pretty cool stuff when it comes to dreams, but here's the one thing that I want to discuss right off the bat here, Sara. I hope you're still with us. The thing is I have these nostalgic feelings during dreams, and I am trying to explore that. I know it sounds crazy. It's not a vision. It's not a symbol. It's not anything. It's a feeling that I get when I'm in the dream that I think I get quite addicted to sometimes. That it's like when you wake up and you want to go back just because it was so cool and you get a certain type of feeling. And I don't get those feelings on the earth, like in the physical realm or in reality, but every just now and then. Do you know what I'm talking about or what I'm referencing here?
Yeah, I think so. So nostalgia for the dream that you've just had. So you want to return to the dream.
That's right. Yeah. And have you figured out a way where you can actually do that? Because that would be epic if you have. Where you could just be like, okay, I'm going to go right back into that.
Yeah, I think it depends how well rested you've been during that sleep experience. Because if you wake up at, say, 4 a.m. because you've just had a wonderful dream and you're still tired, you can get back there by just staying in the same place and going back to sleep. Often, if your thoughts are still around the subject, then you'll return to that same dream. But if you wake up at 10 and you've already really kind of like had all the sleep that you need, then you generally find it a bit harder to get back into that dream.
Yeah, that makes sense.
One thing I would say, because I've had some like really wonderful dreams in the past that sometimes I'll think about those dreams as I'm drifting off to sleep and kind of get into the same realm. I had dreams where I was a kid that were really all based in almost the same realm all the time. And I could draw maps of it. It was like Lord of the Rings or something.
Wow.
So I could back to those places.
So you mapped out like a whole world in your dreams? That's pretty cool.
And I think generally speaking, most people would say there's like recognizable architecture and landscape in their dream places, whether or not they relate exactly to where they live. But a lot of people will find that they dream about their childhood home, for example, a lot, but there may be kind of slight additions or subtractions from that family home situation. But I think you create a dream architecture and you sort of create your psyche and your personality based upon the kind of forms and landscapes and architectural design of your dream world.
Yeah, I've had some dreams about a building with green bushes and roses and a spiral staircase quite a few times, and there's a nostalgic feeling that I get around it.
That sounds like your mansion of the soul.
Does it? What is that?
So that's kind of your go-to. It's a kind of an expression of your soul and yourself in architectural form. So sometimes I'll talk about how we create this architecture in workshops, and I think of it like there's a mnemonic device designed by Quintilian called the Memory Palace, where you basically imagine yourself walking through a city or a terrain or a landscape, and you give each form, you kind of invest that with data and information, so it helps you remember things. And I think we create ourselves in this memory palace type way where our personality is it conforms to this like physical architectural form, and we remember ourselves when we dream.
That's pretty cool. That's interesting. Because I also keep having a dream about a country club or a golf course that I keep going to.
Yeah.
And a lot of the men that are sitting around, they're quite older, but I know them. And this is a very familiar place, you know.
I have like the best spa in the world that's in a pyramid shape, and there's a fountain of eternal wisdom.
That's so cool. Yeah, because I even remember specifically one dream. I was like at a par 3 or whatever, and I'm on the putting green, and I'm talking to these guys, and they're like, well, you got to go back. And I'm like, go back where? Right. And the next thing I know, like I'm waking up again. It's almost like I would go off a cliff and then I wake up.
Yeah. My friend had a dream, or had a series of dreams that lasted about 10 years, where she was a Japanese woman living in Japan. And in the end, she moved to Japan and learned how to speak Japanese because it was so consistent.
So profound, huh? Interesting. That is interesting. What about, I still want to get into the spiritual esoteric side of this a little bit. There are people that approach this from a very logical, I would say, right-brained kind of logical, psychological, even Freud type of dream analysis. And then I'm kind of in the middle, actually. But then there are others that look at this as like all of this something means everything, and it's all spiritual. Where do you sit with all that?
Yeah, it's not. I don't believe it is all spiritual. I believe that a lot of dream content is processing probably quite useless information or data that you've been exposed to during the day. And then spiritual aspects are more of a feeling than anything else. So they can kind of manifest as any kind of content. But you just, like the ancient people, they classified dreams into different, kinds of dreams. So you had divine dreams that were a direct experience of a god. And you had dreams that required interpretation. You had like oracular dreams. Dreams that were clues to the future were pretty much the beginnings of dream interpretation. So I think that's a really interesting aspect of ancient dream culture, this idea that dreams could show you the future somehow.
I've actually had a precognitive. I've told everybody about it, but it was a crazy dream. But I'll tell it to you again. So this was a long time ago, and this was months before, let's just say one of my exes, I guess I don't want to name the person. I see them in a swimming pool in water, and they're like holding their hands out like they want to give me a hug. And I'm like, oh, well, finally, a real connection. But they make me like I have to take my clothes off to get in the water. And I'm like, well, that's fine. So I'll get in the water with you. And they're holding their arms out like they want to give me a hug. And so I walk through the water and I embrace them and give them a hug. And then I kind of lean back and look at them, and their face just turns cold, like no emotion whatsoever. And I'm like, what in the hell is like, was this a trick? This feels like a trap or a trick or something, And then I look over into the bushes and the trees, and there's these like half bony looking like goblins coming out of the ground and out of the trees. They look like walking the living dead kind of. And they're coming towards.
Really nice description.
And they're coming towards the pool, and I'm like, we got to get out. So I'm telling her, we got to get out of the pool. And then on the right side, there's a house that's got glass windows, and these goblins bust through the glass, and I'm like, these are my goblins. I just knew that those were hers and these were mine, right? And so they bust through the glass, and they're coming towards the pool, and she's not moving. I'm like, damn it, I got to get out of the pool. So I get out of the pool, and now I can't, my shorts are soaking wet. I can't get them back on. Like, I'm too big for my shorts now. Yeah, I can't get them back on, and my wallet falls out of my back pocket, and I watch my, yeah, right. This turned out, I thought it was going to be something good. It turned into a nightmare. And then I watched my wallet go down this. Yeah.
This is a recurring motif for you, the classic self-sabotage.
Well, I mean, I guess I fell for the trick or something. That's what it felt like, And like we're being attacked now. And my wallet, as it falls out of my pocket, it lands on the ground, but then goes down the stream, all the way down this long stream to a city.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so let me tell you something. 3 months later, I had an ex that was pretending like she wanted to get back together with me, only to get my help about a very messed up situation that I would say involved demons, you know, but I cared about her. So I helped her with it, but I lost quite a bit of money during the situation.
Yeah.
And I went back in my journal. I was like, that has to be a precog, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that it's interesting, isn't it? Because my kind of feeling about that is almost that everything is expressed by every kind of symbolic representation of it. And that also sounds like a potential contact with your higher self, where you kind of knew that anyway, you had that idea about that person and your suspicions were expressed in that dream. Like I remember having a dream once when I was in Spain of two eagles meeting. I was in this woman I know's house, and her husband was giving me a tour of their garden, and they had this beautiful garden with a stream that ran through it. And above this stream, there were these two eagles, like huge, oversized eagles, like the size of small aeroplanes, fighting in the sky and dropping their chicks into this stream, and their chicks were all like naked and pink and like clawing for life in the stream. And this particular family were people that I don't really know very well. And I was in Spain at the time, and I thought, I wonder what I dreamt about them. And then I realized the wife is Spanish, and I was also staying in this place that had the same name as her, Rosa. And when I was flying back from Spain, we went past another aeroplane and we flew over this river, and I was like, well, that dream could express the fact that these two planes are going to crash into each other and we're going to fall into this stream. So that could be one interpretation of it. And then when I got home, I looked her up online, and she'd just posted this picture of her child holding a packet of chicken feet. And also my dream had like the clawy bird feet coming out of the river. And I was like, that dream could also be seen as a precognitive dream of seeing her child holding these bird feet that were like clawing out of a packet. So kind of everything represents everything, really. And I think that your unconscious mind tries to make sense of the world that you have seen before, and then that can also be laid on top of the world that you see in the future.
Yeah, that is interesting too, because is it really a precog, or is it manifesting things in some kind of way? I'll tell you another thing too that happens that I'm really curious about, and this is another thing on a spiritual nature, is, you know, especially throughout my life as a podcaster, I've had people reach out to me, say, "Oh, I had a dream about you. I had a dream about you," like more than once. And I usually tell them, I'm like, "No, sorry, I don't." I think they're trying to say that they're looking for some type of connection, right?
Yeah.
And I tell them, like, no, I haven't. But then when, you know, like only one person I know of in a good way that's happened. And I think that we should pay attention to that. But what the hell is going on with other people that have dreams about you that you don't even know? You haven't had any dreams about them. There's no synchronicities. Like, what's going on there? I wonder sometimes.
Yeah, very mysterious. I suppose I'm open-minded to the idea of a collective unconscious. So potentially, if you are occupying someone's thoughts, they can come into contact with you somehow in the unconscious, in the subconscious state. I mean, it's a very mysterious thing. I don't know if we'll ever be able to understand that. But like I was saying to you in our little break, if you've had a first-hand direct experience of something mysterious like that, no amount of evidence really matters anyway. Like you're gonna, if you feel that it's true, it's gonna be true for you. When I have dreams about people, I don't reach out to them. Because, oh my God, I always tell them I'm terrible at that. Like I can't help myself. Just in case, you know, there's some reason why they might need to talk to me or something. I always tell them. I suppose there are like some where you kind of think it doesn't matter, but in those instances where it's quite a meaningful dream, I do often feel the need to tell people, and people tell me all the time as well. And I think it's quite funny.
Well, with that, with your experience, when you go out and you tell her, I had a dream about you. I mean, how often is there a real connection there? Or there was really something going on?
I've got like a very low tolerance for people that I don't have a connection with. so I think that it's usually people that we have a sort of back and forth of, oh my God, I saw you last night in my dream and you were doing this. It's kind of like it never really appears with people that I don't have an existing real life connection with.
Very interesting. You know, speaking of hypnagogia, which is something that you were talking about earlier, here recently, this is like a first for me because I was studying remote viewing, things like that. And I'm talking to a friend of mine and later in the day, earlier in the day, talking to a friend of mine. And then later in the day, I fall asleep in my chair a lot because I'm usually working in front of the computer trying to do something and I'll drift off. Right. And so I drifted off, and like in that moment of hypnagogia, I saw an environment that was very specific. And for the sake of that person, and I don't want to reveal any details, but it's almost like I had to call them. So I'm like, hey, this is what I saw. I saw this. I saw, I was very specific on what I saw, and they were like, oh my God, I was just right there. That can't be a coincidence to me. Like,
no, yeah, I don't think it has to be a coincidence. I think that I am open-minded to the idea of a collective unconscious in some way, shape, or form, and a psychic bond between people.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And when I'm fascinated with this idea of what's called the astral light, like a place like you're talking about where we're all connected. But if you read these books from these authors that have really explored consciousness, like Robert Monroe or Thomas Campbell, or even some of the Western magicians like Malo Duquette, because he wrote a book about the astral light too. There's this area of everybody's thoughts, emotions. It's very chaotic, right? And I've experienced that a couple of times, like a level of chaos that you can't quite explain. Right. Have you ever experienced that? I mean, you do this quite a bit. So I'm just asking questions to try to see if any of this is ringing true.
I've had experiences in dreams where I feel the potential to be almost overwhelmed with how much access you have to universal memory, or when we were talking earlier about this idea of dream memory, and you have these experiences in dreams where you see people that you know from the dream world but you don't know from reality,
right?
And sometimes you feel like you're on the edge of a precipice of experience almost everything simultaneously. I think that there's something very different in the way we process the world in the dream states. You have an almost omnipotence experience, almost synesthetic experience of the senses. And I have experiences where I see like close up and far away at the same time, or like inside and outside at the same time. And you see from your point of view and from someone else's point of view simultaneously, and things like this as well. So it's the more kind of conscious you can become in the dream state, the more you can give it a kind of critical gaze and see exactly what's happening. Like I saw some paintings there's a really famous ayahuasca painter called Pablo Amaringo, and when he paints his ayahuasca visions, they're almost like a mosaic of a scene. They're like a tapestry where one scene or one representation or one character happens simultaneously, like woven into the fabric of another part of the story. And I think that that's actually how dreams unfold. They're not this like linear narrative or story. They're kind of like a simultaneous bombardment of visual content, story, character, all at the same time.
Yeah, I just feel like there's this place where if there's a such thing as like negative entities or spirits or whatever, just we call them thought forms, right? Exist. I can tell you, I've told stories about back in my 20s when I was had an opiate addiction and I was trying to come off of it. And the last one where I was going through, when you go through withdrawals, your body's just exhausted, right? Like you can't do anything. And to get sleep is priceless, actually. And so I was pretty much by myself, flopping again, begging for God to save me again. But I would slip off. I'm like, oh, I'm finally I'm going to go to sleep. And as soon as I would slip off, when I got into hypnagogia, I would hear like growling, like really voices that sounded like they were next to me, growling. Like you seen that movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze? Have you seen that?
Yeah.
That noise when those black dark things drag off the bad people to hell, that's the kind of sounds I was hearing.
Yeah. Well, I think that's another aspect is substances do have characters and spirits, and
definitely
someone like Rudolf Steiner, he's amazing, like very detailed analysis of substances in terms of their character and spirit and the kind of feelings that they give you and the way they influence your consciousness. And I love the way Rudolf Steiner writes, and he says very interesting things about alcohol in particular and how it has a kind of spirit of its own that latches onto you and affects you in a certain way.
It does. And I wondered why some of the Western esoteric schools, especially like Freemasons, are like, well, you don't want to drink alcohol or whatever. I'm like, what's the deal with that? Who cares? It's not something that I understood at first until I started actually doing internal work, meditation, conscious exploration. And there's no doubt about it that pharmaceuticals carry spirits within them. It's like alchemy, right? I mean, it's bad stuff and it carries its own energy. And then when you're used to like feeding that energy and then you take it away, like there's something that really happens to you. Now I know something happens to you mentally and physically, but
also how alcohol addiction works is it takes much longer than people think to like really remove yourself from the influence of alcohol. Your brain is kind of trained to desire and want it, and something unconscious will kind of call it back into your life. But you have to go quite a long time without any alcohol to really realize the kind of subtle influence that it has.
Yeah, I know.
Even in very amounts.
Yeah, my mother passed away she was a bad alcoholic, but I do remember like the times that there were times that she wanted to not do it, and you could see like her skin looked like it was crawling sometimes, man. And I don't know, I don't want to get too spiritual or too conspiratorial here at all, but I think there's definitely something to that. But then again, you drink a glass of wine, maybe two every now and then, or you have a drink. It's not that bad for you. There's doctors out there. They're like, well, that actually helps you. It helps your heart. It's like one thing is bad, but for consciousness exploration or interior work, there's people out there, including like Rudolf Steiner or Dion Fortune. She has a school in England. It's Society of the Inner Light. Like they're like no drugs, nothing, no alcohol, that kind of thing.
Well, I do believe that kind of removing those influencing factors from your life allows you to develop a more subtle awareness, and perhaps just developing that subtle awareness makes you more sensitive to the influence of even small amounts of alcohol or drugs or whatever. And so many of the ills in society are because people are so polluted, they don't even know what's causing any of their stuff anymore. They're kind of too overly influenced by more than just alcohol, more than just drugs, kind of a cocktail of everything, and then you don't know whether you're coming or going. So if you at least have some period in your life where you don't do anything at all, and this is why fasting is amazing, and fasting is actually one of the quickest ways to get amazing dreams as well, because there's a strong communication between your gut and your brain throughout the night. You have your gut kind of sleeps as well. And if you've eaten food recently or your body's digesting, then that influences your dreams. And so if you fast, there's like a very clear channel, and there's as little disturbance as possible during the night, so that your mind isn't overly influenced by the activities of your gut.
Wow. Yeah, that makes sense. That does too, because that's like they call that stuff your second brain, or the second brain of the body. Look, we got to take our last break here. Go ahead.
The gut seems to go through like similar sleep cycles to the brain as well.
Yeah, totally. We got to take our last break here. There's a few more questions I want to ask you about your workshops and what you do as far as your dream work here. So we'll be right back with Sarah Jane. Stay with us.
In your face, all over the place. We're online 24/7. 24/7. You're listening to the hottest internet station.
Listen, I want to tell you about G.I. Joy from GetTheT.com. It's the best alchemical concoction of goodies for your stomach and digestive system I can recommend, and that's all based on my experience. Packed with colostrum, acidophilus, aloe, peppermint, and turmeric. If you do your own research, then you know this is the bee's knees for the stomach and digestion. Now, due to Big Brother's ears and the eye in the sky, you know I can't go into the details about what it helped me with. All I can say is I got relief. It's non-GMO, no fillers, no preservatives, manufactured right here in the US of A, and delivered to you by the only people who stay on top of the game and are out in front. Go grab a bottle of G.I. Joy at GetTheT.com and see what all the fuss is about. Again, that's GetTheT.com.
Hi, this is Aaron Hunter, host of Real Paranormal Activity, the podcast where we tell real paranormal experiences of people from around the world. And we also conduct interviews with authors, investigators, psychics, and mediums. Real people, real stories, real fear. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Fringe FM. See you then.
We all have that story to tell in our lives. The winds were howling. The ground shook. You could hear rushing water. And then history repeats itself. When there's no power, refrigeration fails. Stores with their shelves strip bare. ATMs can't operate. Deliveries stop. Then what? These events can last days or weeks. You need a plan. In statements made during recent interviews, FEMA Administrator Brock Long has repeatedly urged all Americans to understand three truths. FEMA is broke. The system is broken. If this is the new normal, Americans can't rely on federal cavalry when disaster strikes. Don't get caught out in the elements empty-handed. Prepare with us by going to preparewiththefringe.com and get your 2-week food supply. 92 servings, 8 food varieties with 25-year shelf life. Normally $137, now only $75. Or get a month's supply, normally $247, now only $147, shipped in one business day. Just go to preparewiththefringe.com or call 888-440-7931. That's 888-440-7931. Get this great offer and be prepared while it lasts.
My name is Jake. I'm from Billings, Montana, and I am a void walker.
Hey, Joe Root. Thanks for lighting the void. This is Janine in the bluegrass of Kentucky, and I am a void walker.
What's up, guys? This is Damien from San Marcos, Texas, and I'm a void walker. I listen to the show to keep myself aligned with the world.
Hi, this is Laura, aka Laura Lavender. I'm from Las Vegas, and I listen to Lighting the Void because it helps me understand some of the strangest experiences I've had. So thanks for all that you do and for always being there for us, Joe.
Have you ever seen an ad or banner which brought you a feeling that someone is reading your mind or even listening to your conversations? Your online data is being used against you. Surfshark is a VPN service that makes online privacy protection easy and attainable. You can use it on as many devices as you'd like simultaneously. The VPN service that we use at UFO Seekers plus 1 month free for $1.99 a month. Visit surfshark.deals/seekers. We spend almost as much time online as sleep, and that's 6 to 8 hours a day. The internet knows a lot about us, and that's why we should care about our online data. Use Surfshark to encrypt your personal information and send it via a secure VPN tunnel so that no one can see it without your permission. Visit surfshark.deals/seekers. You need to protect yourself from surveillance and targeted advertising. Surfshark encrypts all internet traffic sent to and from your devices and ensures that your IP address remains hidden. The VPN service that we use at UFO Seekers, plus 1 month free for $1.99 a month. Visit surfshark.deals/seekers.
Ever seen an extraterrestrial? It can be hard to believe they exist unless you've seen one for yourself. What if I told you I've seen them my whole life, but have never had a witness who shared the encounter with me? Now, what if I told you I saw 4 of them, 2 with blue skin, and there are over 20 witnesses to this CE5 event? My new book, The Blue Beings, Visitation at the UFO Conference, documents actual accounts from real witnesses, many of which have gone on record to attest to this otherworldly reality. Be a part of the quantum paradigm shift that is taking place right now. Go to johnpolkmedia.com to get your copy of The Blue Beings, Visitation at the UFO Conference, on sale right now at johnpolkmedia.com. That's JOHNPOLK media.com.
To call Joe, pick up the phone, dial 1-800-588-0335, toll free from the United States or Canada. You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
Welcome back to Lighting the Void. Our show comes on 5 nights a week. If you want to support the show, you can donate to the show or join the members area at lightingthevoid.com. Just click the Patreon logo and sign up there, and you can get access to the Astral Journal, Outside the Shack podcast, which is pretty raw. Also, the Ask Me Anythings and tarot readings, and even I've got to upload the astrological stuff too. So it's just a conglomerate right now. It's not extremely organized, but it will get better and better as we go along. And Mary Ducina is going to get involved with that as well. So it's a really cool place. We've already got a few members there, and we also have a special chat room here in Discord. So if you ask any questions in the Void Walkers Patreon chat, like, you're going to get your question asked regardless. So yeah, I just want to let you guys know you can support the show. That way you can also support the network by visiting any of our sponsors and saying the Fringe FM sent you, or go check out the new website and go donate as well if you love the station and you want to keep the station going. Also want to mention too, the new Outsider newsletter is out. There are several sign up forms there on the website. The one that pops out on the front page, that's the one you want to sign up to, and you'll get exclusive content, all kinds of cool goodies, magic stuff, life hacks, all the cool stuff, right? So become an outsider too. Tonight our guest is Sara Jane, and I got to tell you, it's cool talking dreams with somebody who's not afraid to talk about all of the big stuff here. But when I go to your website at themysteries.org, I see that you have the Explorers Club, and this looks pretty interesting. What's all that about? I'd like to, I don't know if is this just in England though, or is this,
doing them on since we went into Corona Vibes territory, and it's been really interesting actually. So I host talks about all sorts of subjects, from sciencey stuff, like we've recently done a lot of stuff on space. We did the Starlink satellites and the early exploration of space and stuff like that. So all sorts of subjects: AI, sex robots, ancient Egyptian magic. Nice. We've been doing it about 2012. So it started because after I had my daughter, I didn't go to university, and I thought, oh, maybe I should go to university and do a proper kind of education thing. I went to drama school, so that was a bit different. And I thought I might like to do anthropology or something like that. So I started to bunk into the University of Sussex and sneak into lectures and pretend I was a student to see what it felt like. And I found it so boring, and I don't really like the kind of institutional aspect of education. And I've always had like very little patience for doing stuff that I don't find interesting. I'm absolutely terrible at maths and things like that, for example. So one of the lecturers, I went to some neuroscience lectures, and one of the lecturers I saw a few weeks later give a talk at a pub, and it was much better than the lecture I'd seen inside the university, because it was a bit more off the record, a bit more relaxed. It was a bit funnier and people were more engaged. So I said to him, if I give you 100 quid, will you come and do it at my house and I'll get some friends to come? And he said, yeah, right then. And pretty much everyone I've ever asked has come to do it. And it's been amazing. I've met loads of friends through it that I've ended up doing work projects with. And one of them was my friend Carl Smith, who came to talk about escaping Plato's cave in the modern world. And we're now working on a virtual reality, mixed reality mystery initiation project together.
Oh, that's cool. So you're kind of into the mysteries and the occult a little bit, right? Am I wrong by saying that? Or am I just...
I am massively interested in especially the kind of spiritual ideas and the ideas about consciousness and memory of ancient people.
Yeah. Yeah. So this, I'm telling you, I'm going to start using this idea of the Egyptian. There's a really good book on that, actually, that I read. It's called The Sacred Magic of Ancient Egypt. And it was written by Rosemary Clark. And Rosemary Clark did some heavy investigations into the hieroglyphs and the actual rituals. I mean, probably the best book you could ever read on the rituals that the Egyptians used to do, as far as how they did things. And they had a ritual for every one of the 42 gods, every one of the movements of the sun, all of the different equinoxes and solstices. But they did, if I remember correctly reading that book, they did have certain types of rituals for dreams. Like, so you're right. Yeah. Like they really believed that their dreams were telling them things,
Yeah. The idea of dream incubation in ancient Egypt sort of started at least with this idea that if you slept in a temple dedicated to a particular god, that temple was considered that god's sacred precinct. So if you slept on the grounds, that god could come into your dreams.
Yeah. Yeah, that actually sounds familiar. But have you actually ever seen one of these gods, though, like face to face? Have you? These people say that on psychedelic trips.
I've seen Ahura Mazda in a dream. He's a Zoroastrian deity of the sun.
That's the one that you saw.
I'm a sun.
Well, what did he look like, if you don't mind me asking?
He was a god of light. And he looked like the winged disc that you see in those Sumerian reliefs of the circle with the god standing in the middle of it and the wings either side.
Really? I think that's really cool, actually. Did you get to talk to him at all? You told me this earlier that you seen Ahura Mazda in a dream, but I didn't really get in on it.
Yeah, I don't remember much of our conversation. The main thing, he kind of floated down from the sky and bathed my body in light, and then I could see my body from the outside and the inside simultaneously. And when the light came over my body inside, I could see super close up, and I could see my DNA spirals untwisting to become ladders. And then he stepped down the rungs of my DNA and lit them up as he walked down them. That's
incredible. Wow. And
so that's not really the experience that people can have in a normal waking consciousness type of thing. This is why dreams can be so wonderful.
No, not at all. All right. So I want to learn how to do this stuff too. So what about, so if you were talking to like the people in the States, what kind of things do you offer? Anything for us or that we can do online, or are you working on that at all?
I've got a few sleep hypnosis videos uploaded onto YouTube, and sleep hypnosis is great. Like I've got super into that recently, and I'm going to do more because I think it's incredible for creating imaginary realms, because, like listening to an audiobook story, you really have to do very little apart from like lie back and imagine. So I always find I'm a Trekkie. So I've created a Star Trek transporter sleep hypnosis, but I also have like an ancient Egyptian one and another one on my website as well, but I'm going to do some more as well. So sleep hypnosis is really useful. I can do like bespoke sleep hypnosises for people as well, depending on particular aspects that they're working on.
Okay. So if I want to do, you're talking about healing earlier. Let's say I wanted to heal some type of an emotional situation that keeps happening. Maybe let's say depression, or actually, you know what? Let's go even further with that. Let's say a self-destructing negative thought patterns.
Yeah.
Because you said earlier that some of the dreams I've told you about that I used to have, I don't have them anymore, but I used to have them, were self-destructive type dreams where you know, I told you about a dream during break where I was driving like this white Chevelle, and then I would look in the mirror for some reason, because it was awesome feeling driving the car. And then I would look in the mirror, and then all of a sudden, you know, my teeth would just be blowed out. Right. And immediately you were like, that's self-destruction or self-destructive stuff. If I
Self-sabotage.
Self-sabotage, right.
Self-sabotage, you're in a good position. And then you also said you were looking in like the rear view mirror. So something about looking back and self-sabotaging as a result of that.
Now, back in the day, like, see, I really actually kind of changed my life from that, because I realized I did that a lot. Like, I would look in the rear view and just stay there, you know. So I changed that about myself, like in my, I would say, early 30s. But let's say I was still doing that. How could I use what you kind of talk about and teach to change that with my dream world?
I do believe that a lot of the kind of dream content that you have has a lot to do with the way that you fall asleep and the kind of things that you're thinking about as you're drifting off into sleep. So the more you can improve that, and sleep hypnosis can be very useful for that. So if you were to do a sleep hypnosis about, you know, the positive things that you're appreciative of in your life, the way that you feel about yourself that's the most positive and optimistic, as you're falling asleep, then you're more likely to have dreams of a kind of optimistic nature. Most people these days that come to my workshops, they have anxiety dreams more than even nightmares and things like that. And often people are falling asleep, worrying and thinking about stuff, and that then manifests in dream content.
So it's all about the mentality that you're in, your setting and mentality that you're in before you fall asleep that night, specifically.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
All right. So there's nothing, like what you're saying is there's nothing really in the dream you can do about it. It's more like becoming aware of what's going on so you could fix it beforehand.
Yeah, becoming aware. I think that the reality and dream life, they're kind of like, they have a feedback system. So the more positive and optimistic you can be in your waking reality, if you're being honest with yourself, because I think often deluded people often will have like one waking reality and then sometimes night terrors or nightmares at night because they're suppressing their true feelings, or they're not being completely honest with themselves about how they feel about their lives. So you refine yourself through the dreaming process, I think. And, people have a lot of self-sabotage dreams, and they're often kind of punish themselves during the dream state with various things that they feel insecure or that they worry about. So being really honest about that in your waking life should garner positive results in the dream life. And then in the dream life, if you can love yourself in the dream life and like the person that you are in your dream life, then that will also overlap into your waking reality as well.
I got to tell you, what you said is pretty profound there. Like, I think a lot of us are realizing that now too. Self-love reflects a lot of good things in your dreams, and it also reflects, I'm with Carl Jung on this, like, I think we expect a lot from people, and then we end up beating ourselves up from it, right? But then when we love ourselves enough, it's easy to love others, and then you kind of attract that in your life. And I think Carl Jung kind of talks about that. I'm a very big on Hermeticism. I believe, like, as within, so without, or your environment reflects what's going on internally, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think you can hack this. If this is a real issue for you, I think sleep hypnosis may be like the most powerful tool to hack that kind of negative, nagging self-doubt. Because sleep hypnosis works because this voice becomes your inner voice. And actually, the more you listen to it, and especially in the sleep state, the more that becomes your reality. And it can be incredibly transformative.
Yeah, Totally. I totally agree with you on that. 100%. I wish I would have figured that out with the Tinder thing though back in the day. I don't regret those bad Tinder dates. It taught me a lot. Like, I'm not an online person at all when it comes to that.
Tinder is great for lols. It is very funny, and it's a very weird cultural phenomenon as well, I think.
Isn't like it's a disconnect to me. It's totally a disconnect. And I started realizing it's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to do the show, because I started realizing, man, I'm so disconnected from everything. Like, you look at people's Facebook pages and that's not really their life, you know, and you look at Twitter and usually Twitter's just them being sarcastic or wanting to get into a fight, and everything just like a small representation of who someone really is. But when you actually get to know somebody, it's different. And so I'm starting to think that when we have like dreams that tell us about certain people, it's probably not a bad idea to ask, like, hey, you know, like J.M. DeBoard was on not too long ago, and he said, hey, man, I had a dream that I was looking right through a screen door and I saw you laying down. And I've been on the couch through a screen door laying down before, but why is he there? Right. And maybe we tend to overanalyze these things too much too sometimes, I think.
Well, social media certainly gives us a platform to like non-stop waffle on about whatever we want. You know, I think people kind of get themselves tangled up with it. It's too much. I think a digital detox is extremely useful for dreams, full stop. Just spending an entire day reading a novel would be a really powerful primer for good dreams.
Yeah, I'm telling you, people don't know, like when people used to come on the show and they'd be like, you know what, Joe, you just need to take a walk in nature, right? I'd be like, yeah, all right. Cliche. I've heard this before. But when you actually do it, it's quite healing, right? Like, it changes a lot of things for you. It's funny how it works.
And I've been going to walk around the nature reserve. I live on the seafront in Hastings on the south coast of England, and there's a nature reserve on my doorstep that I'd never fully explored until lockdown, and it's actually been wonderful. I think people are learning to slow down and connect more with nature and appreciate their sleep and dream life as well.
Yep. Another thing that I agree with too, and here's what I want to ask you. I think what you're doing is good. Like, you've approached this from an explorative point of view, and now you kind of found your niche about what you want to do, and you're starting to like have this community kind of collect around you about what you're doing. Where do you go next from here?
Move to Greece and start a sleep temple.
Like the older style sleep temples you want to do?
I don't think it necessarily has to be an older style sleep temple. I think something that works is more important than the way it kind of looks. Like, the authenticity is the most important thing. It has to work, has to be effective. And sleep temples were effective in ancient Greece because they existed for so long. They wouldn't have existed for so long if they had no impact. And understanding the elements of why it worked is really the most interesting thing to me. And there are so many reasons why a sleep temple could have been effective, because it was a relaxing, peaceful, beautiful place where cleanliness was important, where they had cold water dips, you know, and it was stimulating for the body and the mind. And a lot of emphasis was put on the power of this god Asclepius to enter your dream. There were snakes all over the temple, and those snakes would have had an influence. I don't think many people could go to sleep in a room full of snakes and not have snakes in a dream, you know. So there were so many reasons why they were effective. And I think sometimes, you know, archaeologists and people that explore ancient history from a purely scientific perspective do miss some of the esoteric dimensions of these ancient cultural worship places. But then similarly, some New Age people miss some of the practical aspects of these places as well, and why they are effective on a practical level. So I'm quite a practical person, really, but I'm open-minded to mysterious phenomena. And, you know, I believe that people have these amazing experiences where they go out of body and And those transcendental experiences are incredibly important to people. Human beings need those kinds of things. That's what makes people happy and feel that life is meaningful. And we dream every single night. You know, I think this is what the psychedelic renaissance is about. People want to take psychedelic drugs because they miss dreams. Dreams used to be our kind of baseline fundamental exploration of imaginal realms, and people are dreaming less, and so they're seeking out other ways of getting there.
I'm with you on that totally. I mean, like, you just pretty much explained the show, so that's cool. So thank you for coming on the show. It was good having you on here, and anytime
having me.
Yeah, anytime someone comes on from England this early in the morning, I have to really thank you for your time. So I really do appreciate it.
You're very welcome. It's my pleasure. I love getting up for dawn, actually. There's something very special about getting up with the sunrise.
Absolutely. And real quick, where can people follow you on social media? If you don't mind, give your links out if you have them.
Yeah. Well, everything that I do is on themysteries.org, like all of the links, all of the various projects that I run. I also do like a little kids YouTube channel called Egyptomaniacs, which is art and craft projects inspired by ancient Egypt.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That and all my sleep hypnosis and the Explorers Club Zoom meetings, all of them are on the Mysteries.
Fantastic. Well, again, thank you for coming on the broadcast. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much, Joe. It's nice to talk to you.
Yeah, it was nice talking to you too. Guys, please go check out the website, themysteries.org. We'll leave all the show notes in there for the podcast listeners. If you can, support the show. Big shout out to Pacho for making this happen. Everybody at the Fringe FM, all you guys in the Fringe FM chat room, and another big warm shout out to the patrons. I got to thank you guys so much. Sign up. Really more cool stuff's coming. Tomorrow night, we're going to have on Alan Greenfield. We're going to be talking about the secret cipher, esoteric spirituality, and Gnosticism, and also UFOs, right? All of that stuff has to go together. And if you're listening, stay tuned for the Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable coming up next on the Fringe FM. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Good night.